Imagine this: ordinary, kind, law-abiding people. People like your neighbors, your friends, even yourself, suddenly capable of cruelty, violence, and betrayal. How does that happen? Why do good people sometimes turn into monsters? We like to believe that evil is something distant, that monsters are born, not made. But history and psychology tell a far more disturbing story, that under the right conditions, any one of us could cross that invisible line. Think of the soldier who once wrote love letters home, now following orders to harm strangers. The neighbor who once smiled at you in the street suddenly became part of a mob, shouting hate. Or the friend who stays silent when injustice unfolds before their eyes. This isn't just about bad people. It's about what happens when systems, power, and environments twist human behavior. This transformation has a name: the Lucifer Effect, a concept created by psychologist Philip Zimbardo to explain how ordinary people can turn into perpetrators of evil. And the scariest part? The line between good and evil doesn't run between us and them. It runs right through every human heart. The Lucifer Effect is more than just a catchy phrase. It's a psychological theory that explains one of the most unsettling truths about human nature. Good people can be led into doing terrible things. The name comes from the biblical story of Lucifer, the brightest angel in heaven, who fell from grace and became the embodiment of evil. Zimbardo borrowed this image to show that transformation from light to darkness isn't just a myth, it's a psychological reality. We often imagine evil as something external: dictators, criminals, villains. But the Lucifer Effect suggests something far more uncomfortable, that the potential for cruelty lies dormant in all of us. It doesn't take a lifetime of corruption. It doesn't require being born with a dark soul. Sometimes, all it takes is the right environment, the right pressure, the right situation. Zimbardo described this transformation as a kind of slippery slope. First, people stop questioning authority. Then they start obeying orders, even if they feel wrong. Soon they justify their behavior because everyone else is doing it. And before long, acts that once felt unimaginable become normal, even routine. The Lucifer Effect is not about rare monsters. It's about ordinary people, people like you and me, who, when placed in toxic systems, can lose sight of empathy and morality. And that is what makes it so frightening. It's not about them, it's about us. To understand the Lucifer Effect in action, we have to revisit one of the most controversial studies in psychology, the Stanford prison experiment of 1971. Philip Zimbardo and his team transformed the basement of Stanford University into a mock prison. 24 healthy, ordinary college students were recruited. None of them had criminal records. None of them had violent tendencies. They were simply volunteers. By a flip of a coin, half became guards, half became prisoners. What started as an experiment in role play quickly descended into something far darker. On the very first day, prisoners were stripped of their names and given numbers. Their clothes were taken away, replaced by uniforms. Their individuality was erased. Guards, meanwhile, were given batons, mirrored sunglasses, and authority. Suddenly, they were no longer fellow students. They were in charge. At first, everyone laughed nervously, treating it like a game. But by the second day, the guards began to assert power. They shouted, humiliated, and controlled the prisoners. Some guards invented punishments, forcing prisoners to do push-ups or endure sleepless nights. The prisoners, once confident young men, started to break down emotionally. Some cried uncontrollably. Others rebelled, only to be crushed. A few even accepted their numbers as their identity, submitting completely. And all of this happened in less than a week. The most terrifying revelation? These weren't evil people. These were regular students who, just days earlier, had been walking to class, eating pizza, and hanging out with friends. The environment, the prison, had transformed them. The power of the situation had stripped away empathy, turning some into aggressors and others into submissive victims. The experiment was supposed to last 2 weeks. It had to be stopped after only 6 days. The Stanford prison experiment revealed something unsettling. The situation often has more power over behavior than personality does. We like to think of ourselves as consistent, that we're good people, no matter what. But the truth is more fragile. When you place someone in a system that gives them unchecked authority, anonymity, and the comfort of a group, their behavior can shift dramatically. It isn't always a conscious choice. It's more like a slow erosion of morality. 3 forces are especially dangerous. 1, authority and obedience. When authority tells us what to do, many people obey, even when it conflicts with their conscience. This was famously shown in the Milgram experiment, where ordinary people administered what they believed were painful electric shocks to strangers, simply because a scientist in a lab coat told them to continue. 2, deindividuation. When we lose our sense of personal identity through uniforms, masks, or anonymity, our usual moral boundaries weaken. That's why riots, online mobs, and even military settings often lead to extreme behavior. When you're just a guard or a faceless username, empathy fades. 3, conformity and group pressure. Most of us want to fit in. So when the group normalizes cruelty, silence, or obedience, we follow along. We fear standing out more than we fear doing wrong. In short, the power of the situation can transform ordinary people into perpetrators of harm without them even realizing it. It's not that they suddenly decide to be evil. It's that the environment gradually shifts the rules of what feels normal, what feels acceptable. As Zimbardo himself said, the line between good and evil is permeable. Under the right circumstances, almost anyone can be induced to cross it. The Lucifer Effect didn't end in the basement of Stanford. We see its shadow everywhere, in history, in institutions, and even in our daily lives. Throughout history, ordinary people have been swept into committing unthinkable acts in war. Soldiers who once saw themselves as protectors became participants in massacres and torture. The Lucifer Effect also appears in the corporate world. Employees may stay silent while harmful practices continue, whether it's environmental destruction, unsafe products, or financial fraud. It's not that they agree with the harm, but the system rewards obedience, punishes dissent, and slowly normalizes unethical behavior. Look at the internet. Behind screens, with usernames instead of faces, people say things they would never dare say in person. Bullying, harassment, and mob shaming are fueled by the same forces: anonymity, group pressure, and a sense of distance from responsibility. Even in smaller ways, the Lucifer Effect creeps into daily situations. Maybe you've seen co-workers laugh at an unfair joke, but no one speaks up. Or a crowd ignores someone in need because it's not their problem. Silence, conformity, and obedience. These are the seeds from which cruelty can grow. The lesson is clear. Evil is not always loud and obvious. Sometimes it's quiet, disguised as obedience, hidden in everyday choices, and that's what makes it so dangerous. If situations can corrupt, does that mean we're doomed to fall whenever the environment turns toxic? Not at all. The same psychology that reveals our vulnerability also shows us how we can resist. Step 1. Awareness. The first defense is simply knowing the danger. Most people don't believe they could ever do wrong. That arrogance is exactly what makes them vulnerable. By accepting that we all carry the potential for cruelty, we remain vigilant when the situation begins to shift. Step 2. Question authority. Blind obedience is one of the strongest forces behind the Lucifer effect. Resisting doesn't always mean open rebellion, but it does mean pausing and asking, is this right? Does this align with my values? Sometimes the smallest act of doubt can break the chain of obedience. Step 3. Reclaim identity. Uniforms, roles, and masks strip away individuality. To resist, we must hold on to our personal identity. Remember who you are, not just the role you've been assigned. I am more than a number. I am more than a title. Step 4. Courage to stand alone. Conformity makes silence easy. But history shows us that change always begins with individuals who refuse to blend in. The whistleblower, the soldier who refused an unjust order, the friend who spoke out against cruelty. Courage is contagious. One voice can inspire another, until silence breaks. Step 5. Choose empathy. Perhaps the most powerful antidote to the Lucifer effect is empathy. When we see others as human, not as enemies, outsiders, or numbers, it becomes harder to harm them. Empathy reconnects us with the moral compass that systems try to erase. In the end, resisting the Lucifer effect is not about being perfect. It's about being conscious. It's about realizing that the line between good and evil runs through us all, and choosing, moment by moment, which side we strengthen. The Lucifer effect is not just a theory, it is a mirror, showing us what human beings are capable of when the lights dim and the rules shift. It reminds us that evil does not always arrive with fanfare, horns, or villains in black cloaks. Sometimes it walks in quietly, disguised as obedience, as silence, as conformity. The most disturbing truth is this: the monsters we fear are not always out there. They can be us. They can be anyone, given the right situation, the right pressure, the right system. Even the kindest soul can cross the line. But here lies the other side of the mirror. Just as ordinary people can become perpetrators of cruelty, ordinary people can also become heroes. Heroes are not flawless. They are not immune to fear. Heroes are those who, in moments of moral darkness, remember who they are. They question, they resist, they choose empathy, when it would be easier to obey or to stay silent. The point is that we are all capable of good and evil. Heroes are those who resist the pull of the dark side. So I leave you with this question. When the world around you pressures you to betray your values, when the crowd is silent, when authority demands obedience, when the situation tempts you to cross that line, will you fall into the Lucifer effect, or will you stand as the light in the darkness? If this video made you pause and reflect, don't let it end here. Hit like to support the channel, share this with someone who loves deep psychology and philosophy, and let me know in the comments. Do you believe anyone can turn into a monster under the right circumstances? And if you want more explorations into the human mind, then make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.